The first thing I remember clearly is the blood on my phone screen, not the truck, not the sound the door made when it caved in, just my own blood, smeared across the glass, and the way the words on my mother's text message stayed perfectly sharp underneath it. You've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have concert tickets with Yuki tonight. Figure it out yourself. I was 34 years old, a cardiology resident, and bleeding internally in the back of an ambulance. My twins were 45 minutes from being alone in the dark, and my mother had typed that sentence in under 10 seconds. So I did what she said. I figured it out. My name is Sana Ishikawa. I grew up in a house where love was not shared equally. It was distributed like a resource, and my older sister Yuki had always received the larger portion. This was simply the way things were. No one questioned it, least of all me. Yuki was 3 years older, the kind of person who filled a room without trying. When she decided she wanted to work in fashion, my mother cried. Happy tears, the kind she saved for moments that mattered. My father called her inspired when I told them I wanted to become a doctor. My father nodded once. Practical, he said. And that was the end of the conversation. I didn't argue. I went to my room and studied harder than I'd ever studied anything. 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency in cardiology. I did all of it quietly, the way you do something when you've already learned that no one is going to cheer. The day I graduated from medical school, my parents showed up 2 hours late. They'd had to drop Yuki off at a meeting first, no dinner afterward. My mother took one photo in the parking lot, the concrete dividers visible behind us, and then they left because Yuki had texted that she needed them. 3 years earlier, when Yuki had her first runway show in New York, the whole family flew out 5-star hotel, front row. My father posted 16 photos online, every single one with a caption about how proud he was. I told myself the difference made sense. Fashion was competitive. Yuki needed encouragement. Medicine was stable. I could handle things without it. I was right about the last part at least. I could handle things. I just didn't understand yet how badly they were counting on that. It started 8 years before the accident. The first week after I finished medical school, my father called me in the evening. His voice had a careful quality to it, the way it sounded when he was about to ask for something he knew he shouldn't have to ask for. Sana, we're in a difficult spot this month. The mortgage is due and we're a little short. Could you cover it just this once? Just this once. I sent $2,400 that same night. They were my parents. There was no version of the world in which I said no, but just this once turned into the first of every month. The mortgage, then their health insurance, when my father's employer dropped their coverage, another $800 on the 15th, then the other things. A car repair after my mother rear-ended someone in a parking lot, a furnace that died in January, a roof leak that turned into a ceiling stain that turned into a hole. I never said no, not once in 8 years. When I got pregnant with twins and the father left during my 5th month, I called my parents from the hospital after a bleeding scare. I was scared in a way I hadn't been scared before, the kind of fear that sits in your chest and won't move. My mother listened to me describe what was happening, and then she said, "Oh honey, we wish we could be there. But Yuki is so stressed right now, she really needs us." They didn't come for the birth. They didn't come for the first month, when I was nursing 2 newborns on 4 hours of sleep while studying for board exams. But the transfers kept going out, steady as a heartbeat. $2,400 on the 1st, $800 on the 15th, whatever else came up. I kept a spreadsheet. I'm not sure why I started it. Maybe I needed to see the number growing the way you need to see a bruise to believe it's there. 8 years, $364,000, give or take. I never asked them to say thank you. I never expected them to notice, but I didn't expect to be called a burden either. Not by the people I'd been quietly carrying for most of my adult life. The accident happened on a Tuesday. I was driving home after a 16-hour shift. The light turned green. I pulled into the intersection. The truck came from my left, running the red at 50 miles an hour, and hit my driver's side door. I don't remember the impact. I remember waking up in an ambulance with pain tearing through my abdomen, and a face I recognized hovering above me. Kenji Murakami, emergency physician. We'd worked together for 2 years. "Sana, can you hear me? What's happening? You were in an accident. Possible internal bleeding. You're going to need surgery." Surgery, the word landed somewhere below the pain. "My kids," I said. "Hannah and Ren. They're with the sitter. She leaves at 8. Kenji checked his watch. "It's 7:15. 45 minutes. I had 45 minutes to find someone to watch my children while doctors opened me up. I fumbled for my phone. Blood had gotten on the screen. My hands were shaking badly enough that it took 3 tries to pull up my parents' number. It rang 4 times. Sana, my father's voice. Impatient. "We're about to head out." "What is it, Dad?" "I need help." The words came out between gasps. "I was in an accident. They're taking me to the hospital. I need someone to watch the twins. Just for a few hours, please." Silence. Then hold on. I heard my mother's voice in the background, sharp and annoyed. Yuki's laugh, distant but unmistakable. The line went quiet for a moment. Then my phone buzzed. Family group chat. The message was from my mother. "Sana, you've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have concert tickets with Yuki tonight. We've been planning this for months. Figure it out yourself." A second message from my father. "You're a doctor. You're used to hospitals. Don't make this into a bigger deal than it needs to be." Then Yuki. No words. A laughing emoji. I read the messages 3 times. The words didn't rearrange themselves into something less cruel. Kenji was watching me. I hadn't realized he could see my screen until he spoke quietly, carefully. What did they say? I couldn't answer him. Something had split open inside me, and it had nothing to do with my spleen. I need a phone, I whispered. One with internet. Mine's almost dead. He handed me his, without a word. I searched for emergency nanny services, found one with 24-hour availability, and made the call. I gave them the sitter's number, authorized the payment, confirmed the pickup time. The whole thing took 4 minutes. I sounded exactly the way I sounded when I was on the phone with patients' families at 2inthemorning.com, precise, in control. When I handed the phone back, Kenji was still watching me. Can you screenshot those messages? I asked before this dies. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I can do that. I closed my eyes as the ambulance pulled into the hospital bay. The worst pain I'd ever felt wasn't coming from my abdomen. The surgery took 4 hours, ruptured spleen, internal bleeding. Another few minutes, a surgeon told me afterward, and the outcome might have been different. I spent 5 days in the hospital. 4 drips, morphine that made the edges of everything go soft, nurses checking my vitals every few hours. The emergency nanny service sent me photos of Hannah and Ren every day, the 2 of them eating breakfast, playing in the living room, falling asleep on the couch. Strangers made sure my children were fed and safe and warm while I lay in a bed recovering from surgery. My parents did not call. They did not text. They did not visit. On the 3rd day, I asked the nurse for my laptop. Are you sure? She asked. You should be resting. I need to take care of something. My hands were steady when I logged into my banking app. 8 years of automatic transfers, laid out in neat rows. $2,400 on the 1st of every month. $800 on the 15th. Regular as breathing. I cancelled every one of them. Then I opened my phone and blocked my father's number, my mother's Yuki's. There was no ceremony to it. No tears. No hesitation. No moment where I second-guessed myself. It felt like setting down something so heavy I'd stopped feeling its weight. Kenji stopped by that afternoon, the way he had every day since the accident. Coffee, quiet company, no questions he didn't need to ask. How are you feeling? He asked. I looked at him. Better, I said. For the first time in 8 years, I actually feel better. He didn't ask me to explain. He just nodded, the way someone does when they understand without needing the details. 2 weeks after the surgery, I was home, moving carefully, still sore, but alive. It was a Saturday morning. I was making Hannah and Ren their pancakes, the ones they demanded every weekend, when 3 sharp knocks came at the front door. My heart rate kicked up immediately. If it was my parents, I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. I looked through the peephole. The man standing on my doorstep was in his 70s. Tall, silver-haired, with sharp dark eyes I remembered from childhood. His posture still carried the quiet authority of 40 years on the federal bench. Grandfather Taro. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 years. My parents had always found reasons to keep us apart. Too busy, too far, not a good time. I opened the door and he pulled me into a hug tight enough to make my surgical site ache. Sana, his voice was rough. Let me look at you. He held me at arm's length, his eyes moving over my face, then dropping to where my hand rested against my abdomen. I know everything, he said. Auntie Fumiko told me. Fumiko, my mother's younger sister. The only person in the family who had ever, openly, said out loud that something was wrong with how my parents treated me. Grandfather, he held up a hand. You don't need to explain anything, but I need you to come somewhere with me. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, cream paper, formal script. My 80th birthday party. Next weekend. The whole family will be there. His eyes held mine, steady and clear. I have some things that need to be said. Grandfather Taro sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee, watching Hannah and Ren show him every toy they owned. They had taken to him instantly. He gave them his full attention, the way some people are simply able to do. They look like you at that age, he said, same stubborn jaw. I sat across from him with my hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold. How did you find out? I asked about all of it. Fumiko called me the night it happened. She'd heard from one of your cousins. He paused, his jaw tightening. When she told me what your parents did, I had to set the phone down for a while. I stared into my coffee. I kept telling myself I was imagining it, that I was making it bigger than it was. You weren't. His voice carried the weight of a man who had spent decades in a courtroom separating what was true from what people wanted to be true. I've watched this for years. Sana, the way your mother and father treat you versus Yuki. I'm old. I'm not blind. He leaned forward. Do you still have records? The money you've been sending them? Every transfer 8 years. Good. He sat back. I want you to put together a document. Every payment. Every date. Every amount. Why? Because at my party, in front of everyone, the truth is going to come out. His eyes were calm, unhurried. Not as an attack. Not as a performance, just as facts. And facts, he said, have a way of doing the work themselves. My hands trembled around the mug. What if they hate me? He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. The ones who matter won't, and the ones who do never deserved you. The 2 weeks before the party were spent in preparation. I printed every bank statement, every transfer confirmation, 8 years of financial records sorted by date and bound in a plain folder. Looking at all of it together was like looking at a map of a road you'd been walking in the dark. Auntie Fumiko came over 3 days before. She was 56, sharp-tongued, and had been the family's quiet outsider for as long as anyone could remember. The one who refused to pretend that everything was fine. She flipped through the folder page by page. Her expression didn't change, but it darkened, the way a sky changes before a storm. $364,000, she said, setting it down. Do you understand what this number means? I know what it means. It's more than most people earn in 7 years of working full-time. She looked at me. They called you a burden. I pressed my palms flat against the kitchen counter. I don't want to destroy the family, I said. I just want them to see it, to acknowledge what happened. Fumiko put her hand on my shoulder. You're not destroying anything, Sana. You're just stopping a lie. They built their comfortable life on your silence. You are not obligated to keep giving it to them. That evening, a cousin I barely knew sent me a text. Heard there's been a falling out between you and your parents. Yuki's been telling people you've been acting strange since your accident. Thought you should know. I read it twice. They were already working the room, already building their version of the story before I'd even arrived. I hadn't wanted a fight, but it seemed like they were bringing one anyway. Grandfather Taro's house sat on 3 acres behind a stone gate. White walls, a covered porch that wrapped around 2 sides. The kind of house that didn't need to announce itself. I pulled into the driveway with my hands tight on the wheel. Hannah and Ren were in their car seats, chattering about the balloons they could see through the windows. More than 40 cars were already parked along the drive. The whole family. I wore a simple navy dress, nothing that called attention. The folder was in my bag. Inside, the party was already moving. Waiters with champagne, a string quartet in the corner. The kind of quiet, expensive elegance that comes naturally to people who have always had it. I saw my parents immediately, my father near the fireplace in a dark suit, looking distinguished. My mother beside him in cream, laughing at something someone had said. They saw me at the same moment. My mother's laugh stopped. My father's face went rigid. None of us moved for a few seconds. Then Yuki appeared. She glided over in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. Her smile was flawless. Her eyes were not, "Oh, Sana," she said, kissing my cheek. "You made it. We heard about your accident. Nothing too serious, I hope." I met her gaze. A ruptured spleen and internal bleeding. I almost died. Her smile flickered, just once. Mom said it was just a fender bender. Mom wasn't there. I shifted Ren to my other hip. None of you were. Yuki's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. Then she recovered, patting my arm with something that was supposed to look like sympathy. "Well, you look fine now." She drifted away. 30 minutes later, the attack began. I was getting juice for the twins when I heard Yuki's voice, pitched deliberately to Carrie. "I'm just so worried about Sana, honestly." She was near the dessert table, surrounded by aunts and cousins. The accident really affected her. She's been saying the strangest things. Cut off contact with Mom and Dad completely, out of nowhere. I kept my back turned. Every word landed somewhere precise. My mother joined in, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief she had clearly been holding in reserve. "We've tried everything. Calls, texts, she won't respond. I think she might be having some kind of breakdown." "Poor thing," someone murmured. "She's always been the sensitive one," Yuki added. "I think the pressure of being a single mom has just been too much for her." I handed Ren his juice. I smoothed Hannah's hair. I said nothing. Fumiko materialized at my side, her voice low and tight. "They've been calling people all week, planting the story. They know something is coming and they're trying to get ahead of it." "I know. Are you okay?" I looked across the room. Grandfather Taro was watching the whole scene from his chair, a glass of whiskey in one hand. His expression gave away nothing. He caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. "I'm fine," I told Fumiko. "Let them talk." Someone clinked a glass. The room quieted. Grandfather Taro stood. At 80, he still carried himself the way he had in a courtroom for 4 decades. Every eye in the room found him. "Before we go any further," he said, his voice carrying without effort, "I have a few things I'd like to say." The air in the room shifted. This was it. Before he could continue, my father stepped forward. "Dad, hold on." His voice was controlled, but his jaw was tight. "There's something the family should probably hear first." Grandfather Taro raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead, Haruki." My father turned to face the room, every inch the concerned parent. "As some of you may know, Sana has been going through a very difficult time. After her accident, she's been confused, distant. She's cut off contact with her mother and me entirely." My mother stepped up beside him, still clutching the handkerchief. "We've only ever wanted the best for her," she said, her voice trembling in a way that was clearly rehearsed. "But she's been saying terrible things about us, telling people we abandoned her." The room was silent. I felt dozens of eyes on me. "We've been patient," my father continued, "but it's been heartbreaking. We gave that girl everything." "Everything," Yuki echoed from across the room. "She's even been saying we refused to help her during the accident, which isn't even true. There has to be some kind of misunderstanding." Someone near me murmured sympathetically. Hannah had buried her face in my neck, sensing the weight of the room. Then Grandfather Taro's voice cut through the silence the way it had cut through courtrooms for 40 years. "Are you finished, Haruki?" The question was quiet, almost gentle, but everyone in that room heard what was underneath it. My father's confident expression faltered. I just thought everyone should know. The family should know the truth, Grandfather Taro said, and I intend to give it to them. He walked to the center of the room. His pace wasn't hurried, deliberate, the walk of a man who had presided over hundreds of cases and never once lost control of the proceedings. I've listened to what you've said. Haruki, Helen, Yuki, you've painted a very clear picture. A loving family, a troubled young woman who turned on them without reason. He let that sit for a moment. Now I'd like to ask some questions. My father shifted. Dad, this really isn't the place. This is exactly the place. Grandfather Taro's voice didn't rise, but it hardened the way iron hardens in heat. This is family, and families deserve to know the truth about each other. He turned to my father. A simple question. Haruki, who has been paying the mortgage on your house for the past 8 years. The color left my father's face in a visible wave. What's your mortgage? $2,400 a month for 8 years. Who has been paying it? My father's eyes darted to my mother. We pay our own mortgage. Do you? Grandfather Taro reached into his jacket pocket and produced a folder. My folder, because I have here a complete record of bank transfers from Sana's account to your mortgage company, every month for 96 consecutive months. A murmur moved through the room like wind through grass. That's not, my mother stammered. Sana offered. We never asked her to. I'm not suggesting anyone held a gun to her head, Grandfather Taro said, calmly. I'm simply establishing what actually happened. He opened the folder. Let me share some numbers. I think everyone will find them useful. Across the room, Yuki had gone pale. My father's hands were clenched at his sides. My mother looked like the floor might open up beneath her. Grandfather Taro read from the folder, his voice steady and clear. Mortgage payments, $230,400. He looked up. That is the house Haruki and Helen live in. The house they claim they pay for themselves. Someone in the back of the room inhaled sharply. Health insurance premiums, $76,800. He flipped a page. When Haruki's employer dropped their coverage, Sana picked up the bill without being asked. Another page, car repairs, home maintenance, emergency expenses, approximately $45,000. He turned one more page, and something in his expression shifted, just slightly. Cash gifts and financial support for Yuki's fashion ventures, $12,000. He closed the folder. Total, $364,200, give or take. The room was absolutely silent. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. Fumiko stepped forward. For context, she said, her voice steady, that is more than most people make in 7 years of full-time work. Sana did this while finishing her medical residency and raising infant twins by herself. We never forced her, my mother said. Her voice cracked on the word. No one said you forced her, Grandfather Taro replied. But I am curious about something. In 8 years of receiving that support, how many times did you say thank you? No one answered. How many times did you visit her in the hospital after the twins were born? Silence. How many times did you show up for her? My mother started crying, not the careful dabbing tears from earlier. Real tears, the kind that come from somewhere deep and won't stop once they start. We thought she was fine, my father said. His voice was hollow. She never complained. She always managed. She managed, Grandfather Taro repeated, because she had to, because you taught her, over and over, that her needs came last. An uncle near the back of the room shook his head. Jesus, Haruki, $360,000, and you called her a burden. My father flinched as though he'd been struck. But Grandfather Taro wasn't finished. There is one more thing the family should hear, he said. He pulled out his phone, adjusting his reading glasses. 2 months ago, Sana was in a car accident, a serious one. She was bleeding internally and being rushed to emergency surgery. From the ambulance, she called her parents. Her children were at home with a sitter who was about to leave. She needed someone to watch them for a few hours. He paused, looking directly at my parents. This is the text message she received in response. From Helen. I will read it exactly as it was written. He cleared his throat. Sana, you've always been a nuisance and a burden. We have concert tickets with Yuki tonight. Figure it out yourself. The room erupted. Oh my God, someone breathed. You're taking it out of context, Yuki said, desperately. That's not, there is no context, Fumiko snapped. That makes abandoning your daughter during a medical emergency acceptable. We didn't know it was serious. My father shouted. Did you ask? Grandfather Taro's voice cut clean through the noise. Did you call her back? Did you go to the hospital? Silence. The answer was no, to all three. A cousin I recognized stepped away from my parents, her face twisted with something between shock and disgust. Others followed, one by one, a quiet migration that said more than any words could have. My mother was sobbing now, fully, publicly. I didn't mean it like that, she said. I was frustrated. I wasn't thinking you weren't thinking your daughter might die, Grandfather Taro finished, quietly, because you weren't thinking about her at all. He turned to face the room. I'm not asking anyone here to pass judgment. I'm presenting facts. What you do with them is your own business. He looked at me, and his eyes went soft in a way I hadn't seen since I was very young. Sana, is there anything you'd like to say? I hadn't planned to speak. I had come here expecting Grandfather Taro to handle everything, to let the numbers do what numbers do. But standing there, Looking at my mother's ruined face and my father's hollow expression and Yuki's crumbling composure, I realized I had something to say that no spreadsheet could say for me. I handed Ren to Fumiko and stepped forward. I didn't come here for revenge. My voice was steadier than I expected. I came because grandfather invited me, and because for 34 years I've been living with a version of this family that wasn't real. I looked at my parents, a version where I was the strong one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need anything. I believed you when you said Yuki needed more support because her industry was harder. When you said I could handle things on my own, I believed you. I tried to be what you needed me to be. A tear slid down my face. I didn't wipe it away. But that night in the ambulance, bleeding and terrified, I finally understood something. I wasn't strong to you. I was convenient. I wasn't reliable. I was easy, and no matter how much I gave, it was never going to be enough to make you see me the way you see her. Several people had moved closer to me and Aunt touched my arm. A cousin nodded, his eyes wet. My father started to speak. Sana, I'm not finished. He stopped. I don't hate you, I said quietly. But I can't keep pretending this is okay. I can't keep paying for love that should have been free. An uncle across the room turned to my father. How could you do this, Haruki? All this time, living off your own daughter, and treating her like she's nothing. The room was shifting. I could feel it, the way you feel a tide change. So what now? My father asked. His voice was desperate in a way I'd never heard before. You've humiliated us in front of the entire family. Is that what you wanted? I shook my head. I'm not happy, Dad. None of this makes me happy. I took a breath, but I'm not sorry either. Because this isn't about humiliation, it's about honesty. For the first time in 8 years, this family knows the truth, not your version. Not Yuki's version. The truth. Yuki tried once more. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're monsters. We're your family. Families help each other. I turned to face her. You're right, they do. I let that land. So, where were you when I was pregnant and alone? Where were you when I was up at 3 in the morning with 2 newborns and studying for boards? Where were you when I was bleeding out in an ambulance and you sent me a laughing emoji? She had no answer. I looked back at my parents. From now on, I won't be sending money. Not because I can't, because financial support is supposed to be a gift, not an obligation. And it only works when it goes both ways, in a family that actually pays attention to each other. My mother reached toward me. Sana, please. I'm not cutting you off forever, I said, but I need real space. Not a few weeks of guilt followed by everything going back to normal. I need you to actually sit with what you've done. And if someday you can acknowledge it honestly, then maybe we can try to rebuild something. I took Ren back from Fumiko, but I won't be holding my breath. An older aunt I barely knew approached me, taking both my hands in hers. Her grip was firm and warm. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, she said. I had no idea. All these years I thought you were the one who had it easy. I know, I said. Everyone did. That was the point. My parents left the party early. No one stopped them. No one said goodbye. My father guided my mother to the car while she cried into his shoulder. Yuki followed with her head down, not looking at anyone. The silence they left behind wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that comes after something necessary has finally been said out loud. In the days that followed, my phone filled up with messages. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, apologizing. Aunts and uncles who had spent years believing my parents' version of things, reevaluating everything they thought they knew. I always thought you were the difficult one. One cousin texted me. Yuki made it sound like you pulled away for no reason. I'm sorry, I believed her. The family group chat, the one where my mother had sent that text, went quiet. Then someone deleted it entirely. More quietly, my parents started disappearing from things. When my cousin held his 40th birthday party 3 weeks later, they weren't invited. When Fumiko hosted a dinner, their names weren't on the list. No one announced it. No one drew up sides. They were simply no longer welcome, and everyone understood why without it being said. My mother called from a new number 2 weeks after the party. I let it go to voicemail. Sana, please, we need to talk. This has all been blown out of proportion. Can't we just move past this? I listened to it once, then I deleted it. Forgiveness wasn't something you could shortcut. I knew that now. It was something you earned, slowly, and I wasn't anywhere close to being ready to give it. 3 months after the party, Fumiko called me. They're selling the house. I set down my coffee cup. What, your parents put it on the market last week? They can't keep up with the mortgage. I sat with that for a moment. I thought I might feel something sharp, satisfaction or guilt or vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. Where will they go? Your uncle Daisuke is letting them stay in his guest house for now. He made it very clear it's temporary. They need to find work, real work. Work. My father had taken early retirement at 55. My mother had never held a full-time job. They had been living on my money for 8 years and had not once registered how dependent they'd become. What about Yuki? Fumiko laughed. It wasn't kind. Yuki's been in free fall since the divorce. Someone in the family knows someone in fashion. Word got around about what happened at the party. She lost a design contract. Last I heard, she's waitressing. I looked out the kitchen window at Hannah and Ren in the backyard, chasing each other around a tree. I don't want them to suffer, I said. I know you don't, Fumiko said, and her voice went soft. That's because you're a good person, Sana. But they didn't suffer for 8 years because you were there to catch them. They didn't have to grow, they didn't have to change. You stopping wasn't cruel, it was the only thing that might actually work. She was right. I knew she was right. That evening I opened a new budget on my laptop. The $3,200 I had been sending my parents every month went into a college fund for the twins. They would never have to worry about student loans. They would never carry someone else's weight the way I had. That felt like enough. The call came on a Tuesday night, 6 months after Grandfather Taro's party. I was putting Hannah and Ren to bed when my phone lit up with an unknown number. I almost let it go. Something made me answer. Sana Yuki's voice was different, smaller. The polished, effortless confidence that had defined her for as long as I could remember was completely gone. Please don't hang up. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to say something. I sat down on the edge of my bed. I'm listening. I'm sorry. The words came out broken. I'm sorry for everything. For the way I treated you. For the things I said. For laughing at that text message when you were. Her voice cracked. When you were dying I laughed. What kind of person does that? I waited. I didn't know, she continued. About the money. Not all of it. I knew Mom and Dad were struggling, but I thought they were managing on their own. I had no idea it was you. For 8 years. Sana, how did I not know? Did you ever ask? Silence. No, she whispered. I didn't, because I didn't want to know. I liked being the one everything came easy for. I liked being the favorite. She laughed bitterly. Nothing's easy anymore. I heard about the contract. I said yeah. A pause. Turns out your reputation matters in this industry. Funny how that works. We sat in silence for a while. Then, I'm not calling to ask for money, she said, or forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What Mom and Dad did. All of it. I took a breath. Then start from there, I said. Stand on your own feet. Be better. Yeah, her voice was thick. I'm trying. Good. I hung up. And for the first time in a very long time I felt something that might have been hope. 1 year after the accident, I stood in my new apartment watching the sun go down through the windows. It wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that barely fit 2 people. But it was 5 minutes from the hospital, in a good school district, and it was mine, only mine. Rent, utilities, and a college fund that grew a little larger every month. Nothing else. No one else's mortgage. No one else's insurance. No one else's emergency. Hannah and Ren were at Grandfather Taro's for the afternoon. He had become a constant in our lives over the past year, picking them up every Sunday for trips to the park, the zoo, ice cream shops that I pretended I didn't know about. They're good kids, he told me once. You're raising them right. That meant more than he probably knew. Fumiko and I had dinner together twice a month now. She had become something beyond family, a friend, the kind of person who told you the truth even when you didn't want to hear it. You know what I think is remarkable about you, she said. Not long ago, you didn't become bitter. A lot of people would have. You had every right to. What would be the point? I said, bitterness is just swallowing poison and expecting it to hurt someone else. As for my parents, I knew from the occasional family update that they were still at Uncle Daiso's. My father had a part-time job at a hardware store. My mother was doing bookkeeping for a local business. They were surviving. Whether they were thinking about me, whether they missed me, whether any of it had actually changed something in them, I didn't know. But those weren't my questions to answer anymore. I had spent 34 years carrying their weight. It was time to put it down. For a long time I believed that love was something you had to earn. That if you gave enough, sacrificed enough, never asked for anything in return, eventually the people who were supposed to love you would finally see your value. I was wrong. Love isn't a transaction. It isn't a reward for making yourself useful. No amount of money or time or silence can buy something that should have been given freely from the start. The people in my life now, Grandfather Taro, Fumiko, Kenji, the ones who showed up when my own parents wouldn't, they didn't love me because of what I could provide. They loved me because of who I am. It took almost dying on an operating table to understand the difference. I don't know what happens next with my parents. Maybe someday they'll change. Maybe they'll reach out with something real. Something that isn't just guilt dressed up as an apology. If that happens, I'll consider it. But I won't wait for it. I won't build my life around the hope of something that may never come. My life is mine now. My energy, my resources, my love. And if the people who raised you call your self-respect a betrayal, then they never deserved your loyalty in the first place. Put it down. It was never yours to carry.